Hey, welcome to the Vending Machine, where game publishers meet their service providers. It's all about straight talk, no easy questions. I'm Peggy Anne Salz, mobile analyst, tech consultant, frequent contributor to Forbes and Pocket Gamer, and one of your co-hosts on today's debut show. And I'm super excited to introduce my co-host, noted hacker, mobile marketing guru, yeah, stand up for it, Oliver, helped app companies ranging from indies to market giants like Rovia and Wargaming more than 20 years, count them 20, in marketing and advertising, marketing hundreds of casual, core, MMO games and online and mobile space. Boy, it just keeps on going on here. Now managing Target Gamers and also Chief Commercial Officer at Lockwood. Oliver Kern, welcome. Great to have you here.
Yes. Hi, Peggy. Great to have you here.
We're the dynamic duo. We're the co-host here. It's been a while. I enjoy it every time that we connect, and we've known each other for years. So here we are, new series, like no other series out there, I have to say. I host a few others, but this is very different. What started this before? I mean, I think we have to tell our audience where the spark came from here.
Yeah, it's number one, so maybe yes. So I've contributed to a few podcasts and have been, on plenty panels. And then there was somebody who asked me, like, why don't I do a podcast myself? And, there are plenty of podcasts, webinars out there. I mean, now more than ever, I would say. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really want to cover something that is already covered. I mean, what's the point of that? I listen to lots of them myself. I don't want to just repeat what others are saying in different words. But what I do observe is that there are, at least in the mobile space, there are like thousands of service providers out there with an armada of salespeople. I get so many emails every day. We all probably do. And it's really hard to find the good ones. And I don't believe like in a TripAdvisor-like solution where maybe there are a few stars and, a few comments, and that's kind of it. So I thought, maybe do something where we go a little bit under the surface, and get some interesting providers that maybe are not so much in the spotlight because of millions of dollars of marketing budget, and try to also at the same time get like a bit of an objective view of, having a business partner there, somebody who kind of uses a service provider, and also share their story, their experience with them. Because I do believe that there is not always the silver bullet also with service providers. It's not like, okay, you have one service provider and he will solve every solution for everybody. That just doesn't.
It would be great if it was that way, Oliver, but absolutely not. Yeah. But when you came to me with this idea, I mean, that was it. It was like breaking new ground, pushing some boundaries. I'm on board. Absolutely. Our guests are on board in this show. So, it's basically very much about a dialogue. You said service provider, business partner. That's what it's about. Dialogue, not a death match, although they are in two different corners. So I'm going to use that analogy to get us through this, right? So let's introduce our guests. We will say in the publisher corner, we have Herdy Zhao. Herdy is co-founder and CEO of Lucky Cat, well known for making casual games, probably best known for Grumpy Cat. That'll take you back just a bit, right? Long track record, therefore, of making engaging, hyper-casual games. Great to have you, Herdy, in our publisher corner and on our debut show. Just great to have you. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing all fine. Thanks.
So where are you based, by the way?
We are based in the Netherlands,
okay.
In The Hague. So I call that the San Francisco of the Netherlands, near the sea. Great tech companies here as well in The Hague. So really lovely. You should definitely visit sometime.
Well, you're on. I mean, when it's all not work from home, you're definitely on. And if you did do work from home before you were doing conferences, and you will know our guest in the vendor corner, I certainly do, very familiar to us. Mathias Kraskowski, responsible for product attention, instrumental in building up European operations there, and also founder of Zio. I remember that one way back, app search engine, very cool in the day. So a pioneer there, but also a pioneer in many other things when he's not building companies, mentoring and investing in them, helping technical founders, frequently angel investments as well. Mathias, are you ready to rumble in the publisher corner? Great to have you.
I'm a little bit, afraid, but I hope that you will be gentle with me.
Absolutely. Tension, just high level, elevator view. Tell me about it. It's an attribution company, but it's more.
Sure. Yeah, we provide like a specific set of tools and training And one of them is attribution, but there's many others. I think most importantly, our data warehouse, which makes us unique in the space. And we have a set of layer of training which we provide to our clients. And I think we have the best fit with free-to-play publishers.
Yeah, that's why we have you here. We have hypercasual. Hyper excited, Oliver. We have them all. We're going to kick in a little bit with going on with the show, of course, but I just wanted to be clear, and I think you're the best one to say it, talking about, again, the core of this show. What are the insights that might be applicable to a viewer? I mean, it's definitely about sharing, but maybe you want to give me a better idea of the value here. We talked about being a unique show. Let's talk about the unique value.
I think there can be some value in actually having a conversation and somebody sharing experience with a service provider. And we will ask the question. So it may help also make sure that it's not just a pure endorsement. Everything is great and everything is green. But there, as I said, there is the right partner for the right studio. And we want to kind of dig a little bit deeper and try to find out, okay, why is this relationship? Why did it start? All these kind of things. And we want to make sure that there is not like bullshit pitch conversations or something like that from Mathias. I know he's not that kind of type of person, but nevertheless, and you're definitely going to help me that doesn't happen, right, Peggy?
Absolutely, and I have to smile because if there's someone I know who's no bullshit, it's you first, Oliver. You definitely, Mathias. So let's just start for our audience. They want to understand your studio because it's hyper casual, it's hyper competitive out there. I mean, it's great to understand some of the milestones. Really, we talked about Grumpy Cat, but you've done loads since then.
Yeah, we have done a loads. It seems like a lifetime ago that we released Grumpy Cat. So especially in mobile games industry where everything happens so fast. And first of all, I also want to say that I'm also no bullshitter, always very direct, especially Good. Dutch people. Oliver probably knows.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, talking about our studio, we started 5 years ago. We did some unique marketing back then. We did some influencer marketing with celebrity internet cats. That's how we actually started our game studio. So our first game immediately got like 2 million downloads in the first week without any paid user acquisition. Throughout the years, we were quite dependent on discoverability through the editorial team from the App Store. We did not do any user acquisition until beginning of 2019. In the meanwhile, like this year, we have had 3 top 20 games in the US, I think even worldwide. And we're on track on about like 30 million downloads for this year. So studio is doing well. Since Grumpy Cat, as I mentioned, a lot happened. I feel like a couple of gray hairs popping up here if I think about it. But yeah, it's been a great journey.
So what do you think, like in hindsight, 5 years has probably gone by like a blast. Is there something where you feel like, if I would have only known back then, in terms of the studio maybe, or maybe the choice in terms of how you position your studio, these kind of things?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that I wasn't in the game industry before that, so everything is new. So looking back on what kind of things that I would like have to known back then is definitely more about user acquisition, because as I mentioned, we were only having one channel, if you put it that way, and that is the editorial team of the App Store, and we only started doing user acquisition from beginning 2019.
Currently, where do you think your sort of like your headspace is at? Are you focused on UA? Are you focused on new projects, targeting, retention? I mean, everyone has to sort of pick their battle. What's yours currently?
Well, I think when it comes to hyper casual, it's actually all of them, and it's a lot of things to balance, obviously. But the first part of funnel is marketability. So what we look at is, we do a lot of gameplay testing, video test, creative testing, and see if there's any market for a type of game. And then obviously when, a game works, or when we know there's a demand for a type of gameplay, then we start actually developing a game. So And then obviously retention comes in play, and lifetime value, monetization, those kind of things. But I think a hyper-casual studio actually needs to be able to do all of them. Whereas if if you want to be a publisher, you need to know all of them. But if you just want to be a development studio, it's just that last part of the game where you just focus on game metrics.
Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of hyper-casual studios talking about like marketability and kind of testing that. I do feel like I would hope that this is actually almost something that kind of now comes into like the general mobile game space, because at the end of the day, I mean, if I build a game for not a hyper-casual game, but a game for $3 million, let's say, big production, maybe then, a marketability improvement by a slightly different theme could save me in UA probably millions and millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a fun thing. Like this morning, I also talked to another studio that I think we all, all game studios make the same mistake, which is they don't test marketability first. So everyone thinks like, oh, I'm gonna just make a cool game and that game will be played. But that's the reality, is that there's so many games out there, and the competition is really fierce. So marketability is definitely super important, and we've all made that mistakes to develop a game for 8-9 months and then finding out that no one actually wants to play your game.
Which is all about commercial fit, which I know you, Oliver, we've talked about many times. You are an expert in that, and you have a sort of a checklist. Yes, you do. I know it. In what to look for, and to say, okay, look at this, and you'll know you have a hit on your hands. But at the end of the day, it's all about looking at data. It's all about juggling a lot of data. You have to do that because you have your UA. We're talking about marketability. Let's talk about Attribution Provider, because you chose Tenjin, and I'm wondering also the value overall, the position, what you look for in an attribution provider, because that is also evolving. It's almost like BI instead of what it was maybe a few years back.
Yeah, that's completely correct. Well, I think we started using Tenjin by word of mouth, which is actually, I think, the best marketing tool out there. So a friend of ours, they are using Tenjin as well. And I think one of the key things that convinced us is that Tenjin is able to provide us knowledge, because once we started thinking like, okay, let's do UA, like, as I mentioned, there's no step-by-step tutorial out there. So once you find an article, you keep digging for more information, and at a certain point, it's like this jungle of information you have, and there's just no organized information for that. So I think once we approached Tenjin, and we actually mentioned how our studio is positioned. Obviously, we're a small studio. We didn't have a lot of knowledge. They were pretty keen to help us, both in terms of financially, and other attribution tools are a bit too pricey for us, but also in terms of knowledge side, which I find even more important. Getting to know what to do, actually, how to start your first campaign, and that is something that we found very important, and that is why we're still with Tenjin as well.
So you talked about word of mouth. I mean, that's really important. But what I'm also hearing here is an evolving relationship. I mean, how would you describe a relationship today?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a product, obviously your customer is number one, right? Mm-hmm. And I think with Tenjin, they are definitely customer focused. So I think if you have a service tool, you're customer centric, and you take care of the little ones, but also the big ones, I think that is important. And I don't feel like we are less important than maybe the bigger clients. I think that there's also you also need the willingness of the publisher or the client to get work done, right? And also the willingness to learn about that information you're getting handed over to you. So I think that it's just sort of like a chemistry that's going on, and if both parties are really willing to make each other successful, then I think you have a magic formula.
Okay. So, get stuff done, partnership, and also understanding the data isn't what it used to be. Now, as I said at the start, it's really about how to run your business. It's not just saying event A did this, etc., and you have that sort of that micro view. It's more about a macro view. So it takes a different type of relationship, takes a different type of provider. Now, we said this is straight talk, so we get to say, and he's here to listen to you and to respond, what is missing? What would you like to see?
Well, first of all, I would like you to call me a bit more often, Matthias. No, just kidding. No.
Now he's got you on spin dial here. Just kidding.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So first of all, I think there's a lot of information out there. So also on the Tangent website, there's a lot of information. I think there's not really a training module which is put on the website. I believe you guys are working on that, so I think that's definitely helpful. But for us, when we got started, there was still sort of like lacking information. And when you do a call, there's a lot of different metrics that everyone is mentioning. You're trying to keep notes, but you're also trying to listen. So at the end of the day, we still had to do a lot ourselves, and there was not really information somewhere on the website, I think, which is sort of like a training. So that's definitely one of the things I would definitely approve. Another thing that could be improved is attribution with iOS 14 coming along, I'm not sure how useful this is, but on a creative level, seeing lifetime value, was on a creative level seeing more data. So a bit more granularity regarding that.
So Matthias mentioned earlier on their big, let's say, USP or competitive advantage is like the data warehouse. Are you kind of using that, or are you more like just okay? And what does it bring you? What does it bring you?
When it comes to that, I think this is also a point of improvement. Is like the data you get is super raw, which on the one hand is good, right? You can do everything you want. You can build models on top of that, but the question then is what kind of models and how are you going to use that type of data? It's so fast and so much that again, I think the same analogy applies to having a lot of raw data. Is like you turn a rock and there's another rabbit hole. So definitely, more training around that.
So we're hearing a positive here. I mean, all I've heard is just more guidance, more connection, maybe a few calls, Matthias, but overall, a positive scorecard here. But I want to take a step back and just understand, that relationship overall between attribution companies and their clients. How do you see that? What would you describe that partnership as being or evolving into?
On my end, or
yeah, working with people like Harry J. I mean, he was very straightforward. He likes to work with you. What's it like working with him?
Yeah, I think the question maybe is let me also maybe take steps back and describe what I think their relationship is. I think the best definition of innovation I've ever heard was innovation is the 95% of the things you don't want to do. And really understanding what you don't do. And when I talked to you in the beginning, you were like a small team and a lot of freelancers, which everything shifted to the App Store featured, and then you kept on being an indie. And I think at some point in 2019, you had like hits, and especially Non-Plant, which is I think still a significant game for you guys today. And suddenly, you guys became a company, right? And I think having this patience and talking to each other and I think training is not like here's the piece of training and when you learn it, it's actually years pass by. and you choose as a founder what to do and what to do and your approach to everything. And I think on VA side, I would also say that you made also like a learning curve from Facebook first and Facebook only in the beginning to also looking at other channels. I think Facebook is just like one of the smaller channels these days. And you gained a lot of knowledge around it. And as you say, it's like you were at heart like a creative person. So making the creative and the right type of creatives for these channels. and finding your relationship with this, nasty UA, which works for you as a indie person and as a creative person. Is this fair? And I think, right. So I think for us, like to answer your question directly, Peggy, I think for us, like we love relationships like this. We know they take a long time. That's why we have a free tier, and we give a lot of free tooling away, and we give a lot of free attribution away, and examples like Herges are examples which we like a lot.
Maybe there was this case where there was this desire. Okay, I hear everywhere UA is the silver bullet. But then, you try to figure out like, okay, how does this go? And then you start those conversations, and then maybe it's not the right time. And, it's great if you realize that before you actually kind of kill your company. But yeah, then at some point there might be then the right moment where you say like, okay, now you have the confidence, maybe then, okay, this is now the right moment in time to kind of actually, take the data that you provide and really action on that. Probably more than just UA. I don't know. Is it also on the monetization front that you do there, or do you use other tools then there?
Yeah, definitely. Also on the monetization side, obviously, so that we can predict lifetime values as well based on data vault. But to get back on Mathias, and I think that's a fair point. I think that's also where we were at the point, like we had to make a mistake where, we wanted to do UA, but we were developing a game. It took like 8-9 months before it was released. So in the meanwhile, as a business developer or whatever, in your company, you also try to like, oh, we're going to do UA. So we also need an attribution partner. So you're already starting those conversations, and we had to learn the hard way that, that's actually not the way we should do it. And I think it's also a fair point what Mathias is saying about like freelancers and getting information or getting knowledge externally. I think that is also one of the mistakes we've made. To be fair, I think building that in-house was actually a big thing for us so that we could execute much faster.
I absolutely agree. And then you need kind of good tool set and at the end of the day, really the reliable source of data that you can actually make smart decisions. But yeah, you probably do have to kind of build also infrastructure around that yourself, because whoever you choose at the end of the day for attribution will do a certain thing and may provide you with the raw data in some shape or form. But I think in any case you're always dependent on somehow using the data to make smart decisions. And there, because the marketplace is shifting all the time, you basically have to be very fast, very agile, very, I don't know exactly what does my gut tell me, does this make sense, etc.
It is about how to work together in a partnership. And I would love to hear from you, Mathias, in a best case scenario, how does someone come prepared? We talked about the partnership. I want to talk about the preparation. It seems to me, listening to the both of you, that you have to come into this with your attribution provider in a certain way. What is it from your view?
I think really it's really patience, right? Like for us, we're built for that by allowing this free tier and access to a lot of tooling. Right, we don't want people to pay, right, which was, in our view, the old way. And I think you need to give the partner the freedom to spend all the time you need to either get there or not to get there, to figure out whether this is a fit or not a fit. I think the second piece is if you're passionate, if you're in love with your game publishing, we're nerds all here, right? And our world is changing so much, and so there's new trends all the time, and some degree of openness towards these trends, right? 4 years ago, hypercasual didn't exist. From my perspective, a lot of tooling didn't, right? There was no LTV data for ad revenue, which we invented and until 2017, and then many more people followed suit. So there's always pieces which allow for certain things. And I think that openness to experiment to change your mind. On a private note, Peggy, if you had asked me like 10 years ago that I would be married now and I had kids, I would have laughed at you. And, you know, like I suddenly went this direction. Type of attitude to go, to be open to go in a different direction. I think for a lot of indie developers who are really passionate about their craft, I think that's something we need. So these two pieces.
But Mathias, so here's the question. You know, you obviously see a lot of companies obviously come knock at your door, right? Where do you feel like, okay, you know, they didn't work out, and in hindsight you kind of understand, like, okay, that's the reason, or you couldn't already even smell at the beginning, okay, this is probably not going to work?
So that's actually great, because you're touching actually how we operate as a company. So we don't have outbound sales. We don't have also many accounts, like we're still below 30 people. But this allows us not to charge people for long term. So there's this free thing. So the way how our operations work, let's say a couple hundred people sign up to Tangent, we internally pick the people we think have a lot of potential for what we are and where we fit. And then we give them this extra training and attention, which no one else does in the industry, right? Like usually, so our model is to find these gems as early as possible and grow with them and convert them to paying clients.
Patience and not with.
Yeah, sure. So what I'm saying is we have actually a formula about that. Like what we think what these people are. I'm not sure to which extent I want to share it, but I think the key ingredients we're looking for is do we talk to the deciders, right? Or is it like in hypercasual, we got so many inbounds from big studios where some very passionate, talented person came to us, but we, within 1 or 2 calls, we knew they don't have the buy-in from the mothership to actually go on this learning curve.
So there's great common ground. What are you going to do? How are you going to address what he's missing? Is it an easy fix?
I think there's 3 pieces, right? Like, so I made my notes here, so I don't.
I saw you doing that. So he's taking them seriously, Harry.
Yeah.
That's good.
I know he'll come back to me about them. Right. So, you know, when I think like you know, when we launched this product, the data warehouse project, we didn't know how to empower people. We actually changed a lot of things there, but like his criticisms about our training model modules not being structured enough is I totally accept that as criticism. At the time we were still figuring it out, right? Like I think how the life for people like Hergy changes. You know, in 2016, 2017, he was just launching the game. And now suddenly he has to work with data scientists and data engineers. I think that's new for game publishers. But it was also new for us to figure out how do we actually teach people this. And related to like the more, you know, like also with data warehouse, you get the raw data. Actually, we built already actually a lot of data points which are not raw anymore, which we felt people travel. So we had a learning curve on our end. But to provide much more training around that's happening. It's one of my big projects for this year, which I've been on since January. So and Hergy knows I believe you're part of our alpha group of people testing. I heard a couple days ago. The last piece was attribution and granular data on a creative level. I think as we will be talking about it, I think on iOS this goes away. But it was a fair point, but it came up with our business model. Like like when you go to the other attribution providers and you want to calculate LTVs or you build a data warehouse, you have to do it by yourself. And we're great with these 3 game publishers because we give them basic versions of this straight away. Here is something you run tested. But it also made it much more harder for us to add more granularity. But you could assume that we're still working on it.
But we do have to perhaps just think about continuing the conversation. As I said, it's a dialogue. I'm sure that people tuning in, they might want to connect with all of you, actually. So why don't we just do a round here of how can people connect with you best? Is it social? Is it LinkedIn? I'll start with you, Hergé.
Yeah, best way would be to drop me a message on LinkedIn, Hergé Salz. That would be the best. Yeah.
All right, you'll get tons of those. How about you, Mathias?
If it's about me individual, you can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, for sure. And if you want to engage with Tangent, come to our website. Give a shout out that you heard about us on this podcast, and I'm sure I'll be notified.
Okay, Oliver.
Yeah, LinkedIn is perfect for me as well. Always respond there.
So
and you, Peggy?
And me, well, I'm over at mobilegroove.com, and I'll also be with you for our next show and all the shows going forward, Oliver. This is exciting, and I enjoy the idea. We connect literally because we've connected them. We've connected here on this show. Thank you also for connecting with us, and thank you for watching. And look into next month. Who do we have, Oliver? I mean, you're the keeper of the guest. Tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to.
Yeah, so I want to discuss creative because especially with kind of the lack of targeting coming, I think that's then going to be, creative will be really kind of the targeting, so to say. And I want to discuss with a service provider and their client, where we talk about creative is king and how they actually collaborate to kind of, get better with regards to creative.
Yeah. So winning with creatives, great topic. So until next month, stay well, keep safe. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.